Thanks, Rachel. It's true. I cut my teeth writing press releases for Rachel Uffner Gallery. Yeah, I did it for a couple of years, and I believe Hilary was one of my first press releases. We were already friends at that point. It's not like I met her through that, but I can't believe this is her fifth show in the gallery. And it just keeps getting better and better. I am so impressed with this show, and I'm so excited to be here to talk to Hilary about it and to have you listen in and ask questions towards the end. And I hope this will be interesting. Uh, anyway, Hilary, I'm gonna start with a kind of a cliche question. Um, the show is titled Songs for Clouds. What is that about?
That's a good question. And I wore socks to be on
Oh,
theme.
the socks, Hillary's socks have clouds on them. If you
My
guys can't,
team.
yeah, if you guys can't see.
But
It's interesting because like when I think of your work, I don't necessarily think of the celestial. I think more about the earth.
yes.
And so I'm just curious.
No, it's a really good question. There are a couple reasons. The first reason was I wanted to give literally more space to the shapes, to the figures, than I had in the past. And so I think that the idea of a cloud to me, and sort of like just the idea of that sort of white space or negative space around the piece and within the piece, and also that the pieces would have more perforations. So, with clouds, they're kind of moving. You can look through them, that literal cloud idea. And then the perspective shifts of sort of looking down from an elevation or looking up, sort of changing that view. And also, a funny thing is, because I can't take credit for the name fully, it is not my idea totally, although it's what I've been talking about. But Tommy, my husband, we were listening to Ryder, our son, who is makes music, as is that sort of vibe of that age group, 18, on Ableton, if anyone likes to do so. Anyway, he was making a lot of music, and this particular piece that was kind of my favorite thing he's done so far, because many of them haven't been my favorite, this one really did sort of, he had reached this, like, I don't know. And Tommy said, it sounds like Songs for Clouds. So all of those happened sort of the week or a few days before the show, because the titles are not something that it's really the work that's happening, and then the titles kind of thread in at the end. So
what kind of song was it? What kind of music was it?
Wouldn't it be great if I had it and we could play
it? I know.
It's electronic and it's sampled, but it has at the end, and it's kind of, it's very like, it's got some hyper poppy techno sounds, but then at the end there's sort of this driving rhythm that you don't realize it's been happening, but it sort of is like, it fuses everything together at the end, and it was really beautiful, and it kind of felt synchronous with what I was trying to do, like the works at the very end, kind of. So it was that.
The idea of two things I'm thinking about when I'm hearing you talk, the idea of fusing everything together, and also the idea of kind of you wanting to work with a larger space, or kind of like maybe a slightly more diffuse space than before, which is kind of what clouds convey to me. Is that something, like when you come to the studio to approach kind of a new body of work, do you have a sense when you enter that process where you're like, okay, this time I want to like work on a broader, not actual canvas, but like, I want to make this because, as Rachel said, these are the biggest wall pieces that you've
consistently. I think like to make this many, I wanted to fill this space, have them hold a wall where you could have one piece that could hold a wall, kind of that idea.
Yeah.
Like anchor a wall. But I think the question of going into the studio, I noticed that sometimes when I start, which is usually with ink washes on bigger pieces of paper, usually like thin rice paper.
Is that the first
That's
thing?
really just the start of these especially. And you can see there's remnants of the paper getting glued down, but I was trying.
So these sketches, these initial sketches actually make their way into the piece. It's not just like planning.
Usually they get sort of kind of cut away and shift, like in the piece in the very back. A lot of those original drawings are peeled and sort of, razor blade and peeled the layers. But in these, I left more of those, and kept them, tried to keep them sort of all the way through the process. So as I was building and shimming, to try and leave like those early residue of that beginning, sort of the beginnings. So you can see, especially in that piece, you can really see sort of where those original marks and stains are.
Yeah. And there does seem to be a great contrast between the kind of density of, for instance, in this one, the kind of core of the piece, and then around it, the kind of more, like I keep going back to the word diffuse or something.
Yeah, where it sort of diffuses and the energy source is really like dense and vibrating in the central sort of core of it. And then it's kind of like, it sounds sort of more spiritual, but it is kind of radiating out from it.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, I mean, I have many questions about this, but I guess the first one would be, do you see the work as kind of like purely or at least chiefly formal, or are you thinking of a certain theme or kind of like on some level some sort of representational thing when you're working, like, or is it just like completely operating on the level of kind of like instinct and shape, or are you thinking to yourself like, I want to say so? I mean, I know this is kind of, obviously this is like a huge question in art, but it's because you can look at these pieces and you can obviously think about them in a variety of ways along those lines.
These ones, particularly this body of work, I think I mentioned this to Lena and Lucy in the studio, but and to Tanya, they're almost like characters. Like there's figures really happening in this one, to me, the central figure. And then,
do you think about humans, like human figure, or
they're kind of, well, it's more in the attitudes of them, and they are sort of these personalities. Wait, I think I'm nervous. I have to have a little sip.
I mean, I know in the past you've told me that you name, not always, but sometimes you name pieces after people.
Like you've had a piece named
after. It's true, I have had a piece, but not just, but obviously many other people. And
that
the colors or something about like the feel of the pieces remind you of a certain personality type.
Your color is that purpley color, and that is just like the Naomi color. It's just like a thing. So I do think, with certain colors, I have another friend that is that orangey color, which I love, which I didn't name after the person, but every time I use that color, and when the paper sort of bleeds through that orangey fluorescent, I immediately, I think of that person.
Mm-hmm.
So there are those moments. It was almost like kind of this funny play that was happening, a play as in like theater play
Mm-hmm.
in the studio with these different awkward characters sort of emerging in that pink sculpture. Oh my gosh, like I just noticed another friend. This is so funny. But the pink sculpture is very much, I think, like a figure,
Mm-hmm.
sort of,
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. No, of course
Not
it's
literally,
no, but it's
but
easier to tell when it's a literal
yeah.
figure and standing in the
Yeah.
space. Yeah, for
And
sure.
so going into the studio,
Mm-hmm.
I working on these also over a period of time, which I love the fact that, you know, I'll spend a year or longer or less with them, and you really like they take on these personalities. They take on what's ever happening, you know, at that time, or
Does it stick to them?
yeah, it's what
Like when
I'm
you look,
reading.
yeah.
It's sticking in there. Yeah. So I can look at it and be like, I know what happened, in my family and
Yeah.
what I read. And like, it is like that. I'm sure a lot of people have that. Like, do
Yeah.
you have that sort of with
Yeah. Yeah. It does. Not in a,
it?
when I write about, obviously about things more directly. It's less abstract, I guess. So it's that I think does a lot to kind of like um, make me forget whatever was going on when I was, just like, oh, I
Yeah.
see this like, olive green. I remember that I was annoyed that day because somebody,
Yeah.
but but yes, I do remember. I do
Right.
remember. And I can totally see, yeah, how it would work with something, especially something that you work on over time, how it would take on the properties of whatever
It does. That's
of
exactly
the
it.
different things that happen
It
over the course of your process.
yeah.
Yeah. And you know, thinking about process, I mean, I these pieces are so intricate, and I'm sure we have a lot of artists in the house who are keen to know more about the process of actual making, because to me as a non-artist, I know a little bit. I've written about your work, and I've been to your studio, and I've seen your show, so I know a little bit about how you make them. But still, even so, um, it's made out of so many different parts, and also different materials that interact in different ways with each other in each instance, like the different objects. And so I just literally, technically, I want to know, maybe we'll use this one as as a test case, since it's right behind us. How does this come together? What do
Yeah.
we have here, and what comes first? Do you do things separately and then put them together? Do you, I mean,
I do. So they are made separately. It starts with a ink, sort of the purple and the ochre
mhm,
shapes on big sheets of paper.
mhm.
And then simultaneously, I'm working in clay, usually at my work, creating the
You mean
pieces.
at the school you teach in? They
Usually,
have
yeah.
kilns and
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And so, but I'm aware, so I'll know that I want to use like 5 specific stains to wedge into the clay.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Do you
I'm
plan this? Everything is planned in advance, or is it, do
mm,
things kind of take on a life of their own?
it's I mean I'll pick the colors because that does have to happen with wedging the color into the clay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in terms of like the color, although it always comes out not exactly how you expect necessarily from the kiln,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I'll have sort of like a loose idea, a loose sketch in my head of what sort of the ballpark of what I think the colors and the shapes might be. And then I start sort of doing like temporary molds at work with the clay and get the clay going and drying.
How big are the pieces that you
Well,
work?
they're really dictated by the size of the kiln with
Mhm.
these ones.
Mhm.
So so these are all individual. You can see where the grout line is of the paper.
Mhm.
And then this was like a really fun, I was looking at the work of an artist, Stanley Rosen, I think is his name, a ceramicist in Vermont. And he would make these coil pieces. I don't know the size because I never seen one in real life, but I'd seen
it's just in pictures.
Images. And I love the idea of doing in the same way that I do the layers of paper, creating these coils and stacking the coils. So that was something I did.
It looks like that picture of like Homer with like 50 cigarettes in his mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Where they're, yes, this part, and they're like coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very much Homer.
Yeah.
As you know.
I mean, there is something about, obviously this is
there's like a bit of grotesque, like,
but it's, yes, it's a little,
or bodily kind of.
It's like kind of bursting out of the frame.
And that's on purpose. That's definitely, I want that element because I think that tension of where that happens between the more sedate or like kind of
smooth, flabby
thing.
Yeah.
Those interruptions, I think, is where like the kind of tension.
So then they come out of the kiln, and then these are papers, right?
Yeah, those are dyed in the studio paper. That and the paper I started using because of where I worked, using the cutoffs from the print shop. And so I still get the paper cutoffs.
Because when I met Hilary, and this was in the mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s, you worked at Two Palms Press. And do you feel like you learned a lot from that? Like, is that something that
so
you feel like?
Possibly, yes. Actually, yes, because the idea was to use materials that weren't necessarily, which is something I gravitated to, I think, for a long time. But to sort of use simulated materials to create.
What do you mean simulated?
I mean, like to make a material that is archival, make it look like something else.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And to make additions, so to make many things. So maybe that, the labor of like, additions, multiples, probably also has to deal with why I'm comfortable using like multiple layers of paper, I never thought about it like that, but I think that is definitely like fed into the process.
And you wedge these in, like
they're shimmed in.
And this is so it's so labor intensive. Do you feel like it is, or is that?
I think it is. Yes, I think it is labor intensive. I don't think of it as necessary. I mean, the repetition of it and the labor of it and the physicality. Like I am more of a physical sort of person in the way that I think and process things. So I think that is like the labor to me is like essential to it.
Yeah. And you also really enjoy it, right?
But I actually like it a lot.
Yeah. Like, is it true that all you want to do is just be in the studio essentially.
I mean,
like
I really like it a lot.
Yeah, you like.
I
really
like it
enjoy
so much that I sort of will like recreate it. I can, like, I could get some stuff and we could just
like literally here. Okay.
A little bit. Cause
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I do like that part of it.
It reminds me, one of the things I've always felt about your work is that it reminds me of like a sense of, it reminds me of childhood, like in the best way of childhood. Childhood can be a lot of terrible things, or like at least kind of depressing things, or it can be a lot of things. Childhood is not like one thing, but it reminds me of the sense of like, how you find some like piece of trash.
Oh my gosh. Wait, this is so ironic. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
I was doing an interview with someone and they asked, "Oh, as a child, did you draw as a child? Or do you have a memory of a childhood?" And it was so funny. I immediately thought, I guess I sort of more made forts, but one of my most favorite memories of like, and it was a question about when you moved to Texas in middle school and all of that. And there was a construction site behind our house when we first moved.
And how old were you at this point?
In middle school, but I I was like probably in that, it might have been 5th or 6th grade. And but it was the summer and it was very laissez-faire. You were kind of not really supervised, or I didn't think we were really maybe we were, I don't know. But I remember dragging so many things over to the construction site and like layering in a way that it's funny. That is there, and that was that age.
Yeah.
And it's sort of what I still do in a way that I had forgotten it completely. I mean, I dragged an old like rocking horse. I dragged so much stuff, and it was on this like, because there were condos being built all over, and it's so funny that I hadn't thought about it, but now I've kind of really been thinking about that summer. And doing that. It's
a very, even though I'm not an artist, I'm not that I mean, I like art obviously, but I'm not that connected to the material or the physical or the making element. Thinking about like being a child and finding like I don't know, like a piece of tinsel or like a single sequin or something, and thinking like, wow, this is like the most amazing thing. Look at this like amazing violet like single sequin, which is like totally trash. It's like there's a million of them, but there's something so like treasure like about it when you're a child, or like even a rock or something. It really, your work really reminds me of that sort of like the treasures that are sort of like dirt or something, that combination. Is that
no, that resonates for sure. And I think also moving a lot as a child and as a younger person, and even as a young adult, and that idea of sort of taking what are those crabs? Those crabs. With, they like hermit crabs. And like they'll sort of like sorry, the crabs, but they kind of will sort of like attach, and I think you can even put different things like in their habitat, and they'll maybe like attach it to themselves in a way. I don't know, but I think that sort of the process of sort of moving to these different habitats and landscapes and taking a chunk of it and then keep going taking is sort of similar to what I do now.
How did you come to art? Like, was it something that you always gravitated towards, or?
I always did love to build things and make things. And my mom's an architect, is an architect, is a retired architect. And she went to school when I was in middle school, went back to school to finish school. And so that was a very labor intensive process. And we were, as she was a single parent, and we were very much sort of in that school with her practically. I mean, it was very much like, so architecture, although I knew that was not my path, but sort
because
of
it
like
was
art
too
adjacent.
like mathy, or
It was
too...
very precise.
Yeah.
And the potential for chance that I think is like so delicious didn't, I felt like there wasn't that potential as much.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just in my young sort of the way I was perceiving it, that sort
No,
of
but
like,
it's probably true. You have to make stuff for people.
yeah,
You know, like a person is like, I want this to be my home. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
you design it, and
right,
but like they tell you what they want, or if you have to build a
yeah,
bank or something, or you know,
yeah,
yeah. It's funny. I think the first time I saw your work, I feel like we've talked about this in the past, was when you were um, at Columbia, a year ahead of my husband, Nohan, who's always also here, and you had a studio on the same floor.
down the hall,
him,
yes,
down the hall at Prentice.
that is true.
This is like 2002, 2003, and you built out the wall of the studio, right? What was that? Like
Oh my God.
you put plaster and glitter on the wall or something?
Yeah, that's basically what I did for a year.
Like you built out the actual wall of the studio.
I think I saw the Jay DeFeo rose piece. I was telling Terry, like, I was so struck by that. And I was,
Can you tell? I don't remember what the piece is.
It's this story. It's of this piece. I think it's at the Whitney. I think it's on display, or it was recently. But she built out of paint, layers and layers of paint, and it's kind of all these angles, and they're all sort of moving toward a central point, and it's called the Rose, and it's huge. To me, it was big. I think if I look at it now, it might not feel as big, but it was in her studio and had to get erected out, like taken physically. It was so heavy, so many layers of paint. And the idea of this process of just doing that in her space seemed like I can do that. Like I want to do that. It was, yeah. And then I had to just like hack it off, and
right,
that was it. But
yeah,
the fact that it existed, and I would go in there every day, or and work on it, and it felt kind of private, but
yeah. It's interesting you say private, because I think of you as a person, as a combination. You are in some ways front facing, like you're a very not nice, personable, friendly. You're not like, don't talk to me, I'm a mean person, but on the other hand, there is something very shy about you, or very like private, kind of closed off.
yeah,
And and I think that combination is in the work as well. I don't know if that, like, if I think about you and I think about your work, I can see
that's interesting
how it maps on. And I don't know what if that's something that strikes you as right or not, or if you at all see the connection between you and the work, like
I think that's an accurate, I would say that is definitely true. And I think there's I think the work has Yeah, that's interesting because there's that like dichotomy between, like to your point, front facing and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a teacher and you have to
Yeah, no,
project, you
yeah.
have to like engage. But then I do think there is something really more vulnerable and in terms of like the paper can show
Mm-hmm.
its age, the paper can be
Yeah.
kind of like, imperfect and uh
But also just something
discreet. Like,
mysterious.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
something
Something
a
mysterious and
little,
maybe, I don't know what you called spiritual, maybe when we were talking about that, where it's kind of
yeah,
like it's not completely explicable, it's not completely unpackable necessarily, or
yeah,
sort of it refuses like being totally unpacked.
that's interesting. I think
Yeah.
that yeah, that definitely is, yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to. I
I
was
get
just,
it.
yeah.
Like, I've never thought
Yeah.
about that. So, in a way, I know that about myself. I've never
Yeah.
thought about the way that the work presents itself that way, but I
Mm-hmm.
see it.
Yeah. It's, you mentioned being a teacher. Do you feel like that's the part of you of being an artist who makes these things, and the part of you being a teacher who teaches art to kids? Are those two things totally, like, do you see them as totally split from each other, or is there like a
No,
connection?
I think there's a connection. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
it's necessarily literal, like, but there is a connection in terms of my practice because with the age group I work with,
Mm-hmm.
you're not focusing on one material.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're sort of it's very experiential.
Yeah.
You're able to experience like all different um, materials and um, I don't know. I do think that there's definitely a connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Do you find like you've learned stuff from it, like material wise, technique wise,
oh,
that you've then gone on to
yeah,
use in the work?
I do. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it helps. Like they sort of feed off each other for sure with the clay.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Is the clay something, because wasn't the clay, you started doing it when you lived in Ohio for a
yeah,
bit, right? Can you remind me of
yeah.
what was that?
We were in Ohio, and one of the visiting artists at the college where we were working is a great clay artist and suggested, why don't you try using clay and I'll help you with learning how to use the kiln and um, they showed me like George Orr. There were a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different ceramics that this person showed me, which were like Gauguin's ceramics and
Mm-hmm.
things that I hadn't really been aware of and that were very like resonated. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and there's really nothing more beautiful than ceramics, right? Like, it's I mean, it's just the most, and it kind of
There's nothing more exciting for middle schoolers and third graders than when you get the clay out and it's like magic and it never gets old.
yeah. Do
Like
you
it doesn't get old.
do you work with them on like a wheel and stuff,
We don't
or?
have wheels where I am,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't even like the more I've been doing this and um like I'm for example, someone said don't talk about your job tonight, but I will
Okay, sorry,
say no,
I
I will
asked.
say I'd never made a project which kind of resonates with this and I don't know the right pronunciation, but it's the Japanese box. It starts with a K and you make a cube and then you scoop it out. And so rather than slab building
Mm-hmm.
the cube, the box,
Okay.
you're making a shape out of the clay and really like getting it honed and right. And then you cut it open and scoop it out. And that becomes the box. And
then what happens with the box?
oh, and then the box, you kind of have to make like a special way so that it fits right on it's just like, it's so cool. I've never done it before with students, and we didn't even, I mean, it was so fun. But this kind of scooping out idea where they're scooping it out and they're all just like, this is so satisfying. And I'm just like, I know. So yeah, I was kind of passing on that, like yeah, making the coils, stacking the coils, and that idea of like, that's so satisfying. And then having the students being like, this is so satisfying. So yeah, that physical.
Is there like the kind of the line between craft and art? Is that something that's important to you to delineate in any way, or like that you think about?
I think about it. And I think handcrafts are, when I teach, like weaving and all of those things are really valuable. And I think handcrafts for me are like essential because it deals with that sort of meditation, and the flow state. But really, it's this process of slow accumulation, which really you can use as metaphor. I mean, you can find that in other, it doesn't have to be handicrafts, but I think when you look at the object where that's been the case, it radiates that sort of, like with Ohad's weavings, like you can see it. It kind of translates, like, oh.
There's a Linda Berry comic strip. Do you know that one? With the
wait, no, not that. No, I don't know that one, but I love her.
It's like where one of the kids, I don't know if it's Marlis or someone, is like making a coil vase. And it's exactly about that. It's about that feeling. There's rain outside. There's like the teachers like saying, do these, and like wrap them around. And there's that like, kind of like meditative, like, you're in the moment and you're focusing on this craft, on this object.
We were doing that the other day, and I was supposed to let them go. They were supposed to go to chapel at 10:10, and at 10:20,
Did you
someone
say
looked chapel, or like at the end on Fridays. It's really like a community meeting. And it was 10:20, and we were all still like in this mode of working, and it was okay because I texted and like everything was fine. And we played Amazing Grace in the classroom, and it was all really good. But
that's chapel.
We were all in this, like, I don't know, unless they were playing a trick on me and trying to miss chapel, but which could be possible, but I don't necessarily think
I'm
that
sure
was
they,
it.
I'm
But
sure
we were all in this flow state.
I'm sure they were really in the moment. I think it might be time for some questions from the audience, if anyone wants to ask Hilary anything.
You look very heavy, compared to ceramics, but it's not ceramics, it's clay, but still very heavy.
Is it heavy? They're a little bit heavy. The Hydrostone is heavier.
What is Hydrostone?
It's like a plaster, but it's reinforced. It's like a hydrocal.
Is this,
and it's
the back?
This right there.
Oh, okay, right.
And the backs, and then the pink surface of that sculpture, and the surface of that sculpture.
Yeah.
And that's the strongest part, probably. But to answer your question, that one, I can lift that one, but it's better with two people.
So I see this contrast. The colors are very light. You like them, but it's like so light, right? But then you said it's heavy. So I guess you're contrasting or you're compensating or
Yeah, the color is the lightness of the color, in terms of the color and the contrast with the heavy feeling of it.
And then second, I see these holes. So do you make the holes as a shape or actual
Oh, yeah. The holes or the holes are there. I mean, partially I want there to be like the idea where you can see what the thickness is. So it's not just the surface, that you're forced to kind of get a sense of what the material is from the side. So if I have the whole,
The size I just put these parts are different layers.
right,
So you're not talking about the full layers. This is just part of it.
yeah. So but is your question about the layers or the?
Why did you connect that as a physical space or as a part of your something like this shape?
Yeah.
Did you have like inside that space?
I mean, it's interesting. Like the
Becomes
whole becomes a shape.
structure. So it's like a painting.
Can I ask a question? Because it's interesting to me, you're having a dialogue between three-dimensional work and two-dimensional work, you know, and you're kind of using similar techniques, similar process, similar color story. And I'm wondering conceptually, which kind of ties in with what she's asking you, just conceptually, like how you're moving between sculpture, things that exist in the round, these more 2D works that are more maybe about picture playing, about, you know, I'm not sure how you're conceptualizing them in terms of painting or how you see them. And so how you're kind of navigating yourself just between 3D work and two-dimensional work.
It's a good question, but I think that the sculptures are, to me, I'm working on them at the same time, but the sculptures are more of like these objects potentially like coming out of this space in a way, if that makes sense. So these could are describing kind of like a just more of like a description. I don't know exactly. Like,
is it pictorials? I mean, are you thinking like this is like a painting?
No, that's not my question.
Well, can I ask? You mind if I ask my question?
Because she did not answer. What was your intention of the poem?
I mean, the
You said that you want to show the layers, right?
the
That's your answer?
and also the shape that it makes. So like the whole actually makes a shape. And so that like the negative space of it is part of the composition.
Okay. Is that my end? Is that the answer to my question?
I don't know. But I do think this flip-flopping of that space is always been an interesting space to me. So in terms of artists that are kind of like hovering in that world between painting or wall-based works and then also sculptural works, to me that is the most confusing part, and that's why I like that, I think, or why I continue to sort of like mine that territory. But I do think that I'm wishy-washy about it because it's like a flip-flop, like in my mind the way that I think about it keeps kind of,
You don't need to
it's
have
like
one
water.
answer. Yeah.
If that, I don't know.
I'm just curious, before you started, like in this piece, for example, did you know it was going to be a wall piece, or did you create a few of the components or elements and then say, like, oh, it actually lends itself to the wall versus being something three-dimensional?
Well, with this, I really didn't know it needed to be. And because of the scale of these, unless there's like a complete disaster in the studio, which happens, I had to sort of think ahead. with how to build the bigger sculptures. And so, but it does happen. Sometimes I'll, yeah,
oh, actually, this needs a back and it needs.
yeah,
its own thing rather
yeah,
I was just curious about how that unfolds for you.
yeah. It definitely happens. And I would say like halfway through, sometimes I'll realize, oh, this doesn't need the thing around it and it can just be its own thing. For these, they were pretty much these from the start, but that definitely that does happen, and sometimes that's when kind of the best moments happen is when you can sort of like like cut your losses and take like the one thing and kill the other things.
I'm just gonna maybe knit some of these questions together, maybe others, or I don't know. I first saw your work at Greenwich House Pottery. I
Yeah.
don't know what year that was, but it was a little while ago, and more kind of excavated, like gem-like things. And listening to you talk tonight, you're talking about seeing people as colors, and then you talk about these being sort of beings and surrounded, and then talking about the title, speaking of clouds. It almost feels like these wall-based pieces are like, I have a friend that has an aura camera, so it's like these are like the aura photographs of,
And the colors are kind
I've
of
never
reminiscent, yeah.
of the pieces, and I feel like there's been a lot of skirting around the topic of spirituality and the joy of creation. And so this is not a very well formulated question, but just kind of a thought led. Does that resonate with you in any way? How you think about this work?
Yeah, it does. I think part of what the color and that aura is dictated partially because of the materials, but also I think there is, yes, a spirituality. I think the joy part is, yeah, there's joy for sure, but there's a lot of like doubt and like tearing down in the process for sure, that I think is I think it's, I don't know if it's so visible, but there's like that push and pull between the joy sort of aspect and sort of that celebratory component, but then also the excavating, and by nature of that, what you shed from it.
Yeah, like the
what
building
you,
versus the taking away.
yeah, and what
Yeah.
like you hack off, what I hack off, and but I do think that spiritualism and abstraction and that whole canon has always been something that resonates and that I continue to sort of look at, think about, for sure.
It's a lot of layers. Do you see, do you think you are accumulating? Do you think you are accumulating through the layers? What's your process? If you take it off, you always accumulating. That's your process.
Yeah, there's some accumulation and then some taking away. I think it's both.
Well, you kind of cut in the paper part, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You shape it.
Yep, I do. Yeah.
What is the layer?
The paper, it's paper.
So many layers for your mathematics.
I think the process can be a little mysterious. Maybe you just want to explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the layers are layers of paper that I dye and glue together, and then I take razor blades that you buy in a 100-pack and cut it down.
The layering needs to you, right?
What is the layer?
Needs to you.
Yeah.
You want to, you like you said, like this, more steady. It's like a minimalism, maximalism. Which way would you?
Minimalism, or do I have to make a choice between the two?
You think you're accumulating, it's more like accumulation.
I mean, it is accumulation, but then you can see where it's carved out, like right behind you and peeled off. So it's kind of both. Yeah.
We also will have time after the talk as well. We'll stick around and the gallery will stay open for a bit longer in case anyone wants to have some more direct questions or follow-ups.
Do we have time for one more question? Anyone?
Someone asked me the other day, and
Rachel.
and I like the seafoam green color, if that's what you call it, and how it's pretty consistent through your work, and asked me if that had any particular, but I don't know if that's dictated also from materials.
I mean, it's intentional, that sort of celadon green color. It's, yeah. I mean, part of it is like a fresco color. Part of it is what happens to plastic in Houston after, like,
You mean from the sun?
yeah, and like bleached
Fading,
out,
yeah.
sort of in the sunlight, kind of that the sort of bleached out color. But that color is that Bellini painting, is those like cliffs from that painting. But I think that it also has to do with colors that are very specific to parts of the landscape in West Texas, where I really remember like the first time thinking outside of myself of this is a crazy landscape sort of idea, and those colors have sort of continued in the work. So it is kind of like a personal color, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't mean to take the last question. Please.
No, it's.
We can have one more if there is one.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
I just read that article in New York about the myth of the white sculpture, and where sculptures were actually painted.
Oh
very
yeah.
vivid colors.
Yeah.
Europe's,
Yeah.
that's your color, the colors, you bring color back to sculpture in an incredible way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's true. Oh.
And I think there was one.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, when you're in the studio, like, what are some of the challenges you encounter, whether it's work with yourself, time?
Yeah, time for sure.
Always, but
Yes. I think some of the challenges, a lot of flops, like a lot of fails, I would say. Like things not looking right, things falling apart, like disintegrating. I would say like those happen. So that's like a material thing. Doubt. But usually there's like this tension of like how far I can push something, whether it gets too wet, or it's the dye doesn't take, or it goes too far. So it's like that kind of tightrope. Those are the challenges I think of. And yeah, time. Yeah, I think it's a good question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Maybe one last one. Yeah.
No, I didn't think of that level of making when I was listening and seeing it before. But hearing what the last question was, When you have the fails and so forth, are the pieces reusable in different pieces again? Are they retrievable?
Yeah,
Or
they
so
are
each
sometimes.
one can be refitted or reinserted
Mm-hmm.
again, and then surface treatments can be applied to them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I always thought of them as sort of as is. You know, almost the edges and the way they're jigsaw puzzled together in parts.
Yeah.
The reliefs as being unique only.
No, they can definitely be like cannibalized, and
And repainted.
I think so, yeah. Sure.
Why not?
Yeah. Now you're getting an idea. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Hilary.
Thank you, Naomi.